There's a Yelan rerun that came out with Fontaine, and so naturally the big question is, should you get her? In my opinion, yes, you should totally get her. But instead of really hammering on that, because there are no such things as must pulls by the way in this game, I want to really focus this video on the following statement. In my opinion, Yelan is better than Xingqiu. It's a bit of a hot take, and let me explain why. We're here with Masanori and Yelan. Okay, so there are two teams that I'm going to be using to demonstrate why I think Yelan is better than Xingqiu, and they're both teams that I tend to use a lot. Obviously, the first one is going to be Freezeloy, a team that I personally use a lot with Yelan. We're going to do a rotation like this, into EEQ, not QEE. Normally I go QEE, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to go EEQ. That should get me Ice Rush. Yes, indeed. And then I can even chuck in a cheeky E in there as well. Normally I go for like a Kaz swirl into another cheeky E. But either way, just like that, we were pretty much ready for a second rotation if Masanori hadn't died. Thing is though, can't really do that with Xingqiu. Even if it's Saxor Xingqiu. And that is why I went EEQ, because if I were to go QEE on Saxor Xingqiu, oh boy, it would be worse. So we'll do this, into this, EEQ, so yeah, you could definitely play Freezeloy with Xingqiu, that's fine, but look at my cooldowns. I was able to chuck a cheeky skill out with Yelan. I would not be able to do that with Xingqiu. Oh, for real? Oh, that exploded. Whatever. Skills still not available. The main thing is that his cooldowns are annoyingly long. Because if we compare between Yelan and Xingqiu's cooldowns is a 21-second cooldown on his skill with a 15-second duration, but that's whatever. And we also have a 20-second cooldown with a 15-second duration on his burst, meaning his skill has a longer cooldown than his burst. If I were to go QEE with Saxor Xingqiu, it will be a lot worse than what we already saw, but his cooldowns are pretty long. Of course, if we were to then compare with Yelan, we have a 10-second cooldown on her skill, and because I had C1, that's 20-second cooldowns on her skill. Technically, it's like 19, but we're not going to get into that funky math. And then we also have an 18-second cooldown on her burst, with a 15-second cooldown on 50-second duration rather. So their durations, at least for their ults, are the same, but Yelan's cooldown is faster. Xingqiu's cooldowns are longer, which in turn makes him feel a bit worse. Xingqiu does technically he does have a bit of a longer duration with a constellation that's not shown in there, so his ult does actually last a little bit longer. It's about 3 seconds longer, so there's that. So in terms of like the amount of seconds that they have off time, it's the same. It's 3 seconds. But because Yelan's cooldowns and I guess her duration as well is a little bit shorter, it's just in that sweet spot where it doesn't feel as clunky. There is another reason why, in my opinion, Xingqiu is worse than Yelan. And ironically, it's because Xingqiu is sometimes too strong. We're here with Senna. Okay. In Quickbloom, which is, in my opinion, Senna's best team, we have this hilarious situation where Xingqiu's Hydra application is too fast. Yelan's happens to be just right. Now, this is with just Baiju. Keep an eye on Masanori's health bar. We are generally maintaining a Dendro aura. We're not getting a random underlying Hydra aura, which is going to be a big difference when we swap over to Xingqiu. So, that's what happens with Yelan. what happens with Xingqiu? We end up with something like this. So I'm gonna try and do the exact same rotation as I did with Yelan. Alright, we'll do Q. Well, we could do E, Q. We'll do E, E, Q, but it doesn't really matter. Oh, underlying Hydro Aura. Underlying Hydro Aura. Underlying Hydro Aura. This is actually not good. This is actually not good for a Sinnoh Quickbloom team. Let me just try to get my energy back. Because otherwise it won't really matter. Okay, that was not good for Quickbloom. Because the way I've built Sinnoh is EM Electro Crit. By losing that underlying Dendro Aura, we don't do any Quicken. Which really kills Quickbloom. It just becomes a Hyper Bloom team, and that's not good if you haven't built your Sinnoh on full EM. It even gets worse, because even with sweet Nahida, it's not enough! Alright, there we go. Alright. Not the best rotation for this, but whatever. Oh, there was an underlying Hydro Aura for a split second. Not ideal. So, like, you can see that even with Nahida, the best off-field Dendro application in the game, we were, like, barely holding on. Barely holding on. Because Xingqiu's Hydro application is so insanely strong at C6. Obviously, Xingqiu has some perks that make him a lot better than Yelan in certain situations. Xingqiu brings along damage reduction, which is really good if you're playing teams that don't have a healer. For example, Taser, this is a team that relies pretty much on Xingqiu's minimal healing and instead more on his damage reduction paired with something like Beidou's damage reduction. So that's of course why Taser can be really strong without the need of a healer. On top of that, his Hydro application being really high is also really good for a Hu Tao team, where you only need to use Xingqiu, you don't necessarily need to use two Hydro characters with Hu Tao. And then of course, Xingqiu can be bought from Paimon's shop as a 4-star, so it's theoretically easier to get him, and also he does have a lot of raid up banners, so it's theoretically easier to get him. But it's also theoretically more difficult if you're just looking at it from a banner perspective. Yelan, on the other hand, in my opinion, has some better perks. Yelan's personal damage is higher, just straight up. Depending on how you've built each character, I mean, maybe you might not have the right pieces for Yelan, in which case Xingqiu might do a bit more damage, but as a general rule, Yelan will do better. Also, Yelan can use your inevitable HP double crit pieces. Because she's Yelan, her scaling is 99.99% of the time exclusively on HP. Even for me, who's triple crowned Yelan, the way I use her, her skill is HP based, her ult is HP based, and of course her breakthrough barbs are HP based. So yeah, she's really good because she can use those pieces that you otherwise would not be able to use, because otherwise Xingqiu would be fighting for attack pieces. Like I mentioned, the whole cooldown discussion really makes me believe that Yelan is not as clunky as Xingqiu, and yes, I am saying that Xingqiu is a little bit clunky. And Yelan does bring along a pretty big dick damage bonus. Now, this is a damage bonus that, of course, is a damage bonus that grows over time. So just, it's not going to be massive at the start, but as your Yelan ult keeps churning away, it's going to start doing more damage for your active character at the very least, so that's going to be pretty nice. And even though I did say it's easy to get Xingqiu from Paimon's shop because he's a 4-star, and also because he's a 4-star on the raid up banners, he also gets raid ups. theoretically, it's easier to get Yelan because you have a guarantee on getting Yelan after you spend $300. But you at least have a guarantee of getting Yelan. If you're trying to get Xingqiu, you might find yourself in what I call the Dory incident, where you might end up getting 2 5-stars before you even get 2 Dories. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of why I 99% of the time would prefer using Yelan over Xingqiu. And so I've right now just put a Flowers of Paradise Lost set on Xingqiu because I prefer to just use him instead of Yelan, not necessarily because of any perks that Xingqiu has, but mainly because I'm just too lazy to swap artifact sets for Yelan. So that's really the reason. Outside of that, since her last rerun, her weapon choices haven't changed a whole lot, so I'll just quickly run through basically how you would build Yelan for anyone who doesn't know how to build Yelan. In terms of weapons, Aqua, Elegy, pretty much the way to go for your 5-stars. If you have a high refined Sky Harp, that's potentially a good idea. Keep in mind, of course, that high base attack is completely wasted on Yelan. But what is high refined Sky Harp? It's 22% crit rate, 40% crit damage. So what's that? It's about the same crit value as an Aqua Simulacra. So obviously it won't have the damage bonuses that Aqua provides, but you could use High Refined Sky Harp for the time being. In terms of her 4-stars, Favbow is pretty much the way to go. Sackbow is also good. It does allow you to simulate C1 Yelan without ever getting C1 Yelan. High Refined Moon's Moon could be good as well. R5 Stringless is also potentially a good option. In particular, if you're playing like a Triple Crown forward Vape Yelan, or as I call it, Virgin teams with Yelan. Ironically enough, because Yelan's Hydro application is slower than Xingqiu's, I find that in a lot of Virgin scenarios, she ends up forward vaping instead. So at that point, putting some EM on Yelan through something like Stringless might actually be a hilarious choice. And then in terms of Yelan's artifact choices, nothing's changed. Pretty much go Emblem of Seven Fates, 4-piece. That's basically it. If you have C6 Yelan, it seems like the popular choice is 2-piece Hydro HP, or on the rare occasion, 2-piece Hydro. I'm of course basing that off the Akasha terminal, so you can kind of just figure it out from there. In terms of the artifact sets, nothing's changed. Basically go ER Hydro Crit, or if you have enough ER HP Hydro Crit, that's pretty much it. If you don't have a Hydro Cup, then HP Crit should be fine as well. In terms of her ER, look, my Yelan is 160 ER. And I feel like that's barely enough. So if you can hit that, you might be okay. Also keep in mind that my Yelan is a top 2% Yelan in the 160 ER subcategory. Apparently this is otherwise translated to being a top 4% Yelan. So that's very exciting. That might also be why I like Yelan so much. Anyway, I would probably say go 180% ER if you can. Good luck. That's probably the most comfortable threshold. And then, of course, if you happen to have either Sackbow on her, or if you have C1 Yelan, and you're worried about your energy, then don't worry about doing QEE. Like, technically, it allows her to do some nice amount of damage, but EEQ, you get your ult a lot more comfortably. I would just stick with that. And finally, her Constellations. I mean, I think I've already mentioned this in the previous Should You Get Yelan video, but I'll just quickly go through it again. C1 is great. It allows you to get 2 Es. C2 is good because it basically increases her Hydro application by a bit, but also, more importantly, increases her ultimate damage by a pretty decent amount as far as I'm concerned. C4 is useful. What is that? It's like extra HP. It's useful, whatever. Actually, no. It's going to be a bit more useful potentially with a lot of the new Fontaine characters that are coming out, because it seems like HP scaling is going to be a big thing with Fontaine. So get ready for that. So C4 might actually see a lot more use in that particular regard. And then finally we have C6, which of course is DP per screenshot, or rather it's actually damage per video. Damage per like 5-second video. So if you want to be like the Tony Toes of the world, C6 is actually pretty fun to use. But yeah, that's pretty much it with regards to this video. Hopefully it's not too long and I don't have to spend forever editing this video down. Either way, the point is, in my opinion, Xingqiu is not as good as Yelan in all of the teams that I prefer to play. So if you were me, I would highly recommend Xingqiu. Xingqiu does have his places where he is better than Yelan, but as a general rule, the difference is either not that massive that I wouldn't actually throw away the fact that Yelan is super duper hot and also can run around and is actually really fun to play out the window. Anyway, let me know what all of this in the comments below. How do you feel about this particular debate? Do you prefer Yelan or do you prefer Xingqiu? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact action, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Busted. Game's up. Fun's over.
This way through the
This quickly!
Boba, get them!
Don't be a killjoy!
Gotcha.
There is no escape!
Taking a turn for the better. A bitter post.
Eat this!
Your verdict is decided. Gotcha. Quietly now. Things are about to get dicey.
Inazuma shines eternal! Absurd! Illusions of destruction! Shine down!
Shatter.
Get them!
Busted.
Illusion shattered!
Seems like an emergency.
Gotcha. Your verdict is decided.